Welcome to the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I'm dedicated to helping you take control of your life. Together, we'll explore practical tips, expert advice, and inspiring stories to help you overcome obstacles and achieve your goals. Making small changes is possible and can lead to big results. Are you ready? Let's go do this. I'm excited to have the bucket list guy. When you think of bucket list, I think of adventures that I probably will never do, but they sound really good on paper.
Adventures you'll never do, but look good on paper. I could spend all day unpacking that comment.
Okay, let's start there then, because that has to be, hey, look, when you don't live a very, I don't know, I never lived that kind of adventurous life. To me, a bucket list adventure is just, go to, I don't know. Why don't you define bucket list to you? And let's start at that.
No, I think a bucket list isn't about doing marathons, climbing Mount Everest, jumping out of planes. To qualify as a bucket lister, you don't have to be a Red Bull sponsored athlete. It's stuff that lights you up, gives you meaning, purpose, fulfillment, and a sense of gratitude. Or bucket list items are reflective of you and your life versus you comparing against other people. And I think we get trapped in comparisonitis, right? We all suffer from it, but screw everyone else's bucket list. We can glean ideas, but what's the things that light you up? I've been the bucket list guy for over 13 years, and everyone's list is different. Sure, there's some common things, but most people don't want to climb Everest and don't want to do an Ironman triathlon and marathons there.
You want to unpack that F list?
It's chapter 13 in my book, and okay. There it is. And so I'm not going to say it, Sue, with respect to your audience. You've got three types of lists, according to me, right? Okay. You've got a future bucket list, right, which is all the stuff you want to do. You've got a reverse bucket list, stuff that you've done in the past, your done list, right? And that's a really important exercise as well, because your done list is a big gratitude exercise. It's what they play at your funeral. We live in a forward-facing world, thinking about the next thing, the next goal, the next to-do item that I've got to do today. The last thing people want is, let's create a bucket list and put more crap on my plate and create more anxiety and possibly depression when I don't achieve it, because I'm already overwhelmed. We're already suffering from infobesity. The reverse bucket list is a reflection. It's a big gratitude exercise where you reflect back on the timeline of your life. When the chips are down, when motivation is waning, it's a great exercise to look back into your life. If I asked you, like I did a keynote on Friday, and I asked the room, write down 5 things that you've done in your life as if they were in a bucket list all the way along. And I always do the reverse bucket list before the future bucket list. Let's reflect on 5 things. More often than not, people can punch out 2 or 3 highlights of their life. But when it comes to 5, they've really got to think. We're just not trained to think like that. But that's one of the pillars of positive psychology, right? Build out your reverse bucket list. Remember all the cool things that you've done in your life up until this point, and keep building on that. Make a reverse bucket list board to have a visual representation of everything that you've done in your life. I have a Google folder, my favorite song, and I've actually said to my kids, if I fall off the perch, here's the link to that. You can grab the highlights reel of my life, my reverse bucket list, and here's my favorite song, mash it all up. Played at my funeral. Now, the question is, if that was played, would you be stoked, or would you be like, I could have squeezed a bit more in?
Oh, well, that's a good question then. That's a good question for us to ask ourselves, to say, okay, what would you say? You had 1 is future, 2 is reverse, and 3 is, it rhymes with bucket and starts with F.
There you go. And that's all the shit. That's all the shit you just don't want to do. So I'll give you an
All right, right.
example.
I'll say it again. Rhymes with bucket, starts with F. It's
Yeah,
all the stuff you don't want
truck,
to do.
bucket lists. I created that when I went to Mount Everest base camp, advanced base camp through Tibet with my dad. We were at advanced base camp in Tibet on the northern side of Everest. I was suffering so bad from altitude sickness, a headache. Dad was fine. My 68-year-old dad at the time, he was fine. We were the full expedition team. Our goal was not to go to the top, but there was 13 summiters on that expedition. One of my mates was going to the top, and he invited Dad and I to come along with him and the rest of the expedition team. We had the opportunity to travel with them and peel off at base camp or advanced base camp in Tibet. And I was parked around the bowl, throwing up, shocking headache, like a really bad hangover. And I looked north from the bowl. I looked up at the top of Mount Everest. I had summit Mount Everest on my bucket list. But I looked up. I was 2 kilometres north from where I was. I went, no, not doing that. No, F that. And that's when I created chapter 13 in my book.
I'm glad you have that, because I was having a conversation with a friend about how there are things in life where you just go, F it. It's okay. I think that's the big thing. We don't give ourselves permission to go, I don't want to do, or I don't need to do that. How often do we look at what everybody else does and say, oh, I'm falling short, I have to do that? It's that Facebookitis where you see everybody else doing these cool things, and then you yourself look at it and go, I'm not doing that. I think it's giving ourselves permission to say, F it, their life, not my life.
When we write down goals, let alone bucket list items, they've got to be unrealistic, because if they're realistic, then they're just to-do list items.
What's the difference then? How would you give an example? How would you define between
the time and money hold us back the most, and fear of judgment, comparison, and fear of failures? People don't write down their goals, let alone bucket list items, because of fear of self-disappointment. If I write this goal down, if I don't achieve it, here I go again. I'll be upset with myself. I don't want to disappoint myself. Fear of failure. So I want to write it down. Little do people know, if you get out of your own way, easier said than done. If you just write stuff down, like research suggests, you get a 46% more likelihood of manifesting if you just write stuff down. Most people don't, because of fear of failure, disappointment, judgment, or whatever. People ask me, what's the first step in achieving bucket list items? Get them out of your head and write them down. Separate from your daily to-do list. Which one gets done first? That's our crazy to-do list. Right. It's not until something dramatic or traumatic happens to you or a loved one, then you pivot on your priorities as a result.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I want to wake people up before they get given a use-by date.
Okay.
Because that was the whole movie, right? The bucket list movie was about 2 blokes that get given a cancer diagnosis, and then they write a bucket list. I've based my whole career on it. It's a movie because they waited until they got given a use-by date. We should act as if before we get given a use-by date, right?
Yeah, I like that. Acting as if something's going to happen, even though you don't know what that as if is. The reality is the as if could be coming tomorrow. We just don't know it.
When I do keynotes and coaching, I'm most known for waking people up, giving them a virtual cancer diagnosis. I'm there to disrupt, not scare the shit out of everyone, just give them a reality check, because we live in this la-la land where we take it for granted. But it's scary with some of the exercises that I've managed to do with people over the years, and it's been refined, but it's memorable. It hits home, and it reminds people of how little time we have left. And I want to help people live a regret-free life. And if you come back to me and go, "Oh no, I'm happy, I'm fulfilled, I'm ticking all the boxes," cool.
What's one, if somebody says, my life's fine just the way it is, what would you say to help them wake up?
If they're happy, job done.
If there's like, my life's fine, but I could use a little more.
When you're a coach, people are kidding themselves or lying. I come across people, it's not forcing. One thing you never do is assume. Never say, hey, Sue, you must, you need to, you should, you have to.
Right.
These are programs of comparison. You don't know my life. You can't tell me what to do. Present a different perspective. Here's another way of looking at it. Whether it's your thing or not, totally your call. But at the end of the day, it has worked for a lot of people. My job is not to run around and tell everyone their life is crap and they should be living a different life. No, fulfilled and full of gratitude. Job done. You're not my target market. There's no gap to fill. But if I asked your audience and yourself, fulfillment rather than happiness, two different things. But let's look at fulfillment. I like fulfillment, more long-lasting than happiness. Happiness is fleeting. I've been through depression and I can find $50 in my jeans and go, I'm happy. Fulfillment is more sustained. It's a way of being rather than a fleeting emotion, my definition. If someone has a deep sense of fulfillment, job done. That's the holy grail. For most people, not to create anxiety, depression about where they're at in life, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being really fulfilled, where are you now on that scale? So where would you be?
Oh, where would I be?
Yeah.
I didn't know if you were asking that like, esoterically.
I'm
or
always asked. I can't help
Yeah, I
myself.
know. No.
I'll turn this into a Dr. Phil session.
No, it's okay. Where am I at? That's a really funny question because I'm sitting here thinking I don't really have a written out bucket list. There are things I want to do. I just never forced myself. I have a few lists somewhere. You could do anything in a lifetime.
So you've got the bucket list guy, and apparently he's the world's #1 bucket list expert. It says it on the screen, it's on the book.
That's right.
You haven't got a bucket list written out. Oh my God.
It's not a formal bucket list.
Now, you told me to prepare for this interview. What have you done?
It's sitting in the other room, in the back of a book somewhere.
Anyway,
guys, you can call out my shit. It's fine.
That's what I do.
Fulfillment. That's interesting because to me, I would have different numbers based on what you're asking, the different parts of life, whether I'm fulfilled in finances, relationships, career,
let's go through it.
with money, with wealth. For me, probably 6 at the moment.
It's you against you.
It's
Health.
me against me. Health is 9 for me.
9.
Fulfillment.
All
Yeah.
right. 6. Relationships.
5.
Business. Career.
8.
Cool. What's 6, 9, 5, and 8? Let's find the average.
That's 28 divided by 4. It's 7. That's a 7.
All right. There you go. Not too bad.
Good.
There's no judgment. It's you against you. Your
Right.
7 is different to my 7, different to someone else's 7. The question is, what does 10 look like? What does 10 look like in each of these areas? Does that 10 change over time? I like to recalibrate at least once a year. If you want to close that gap, then that's when we start talking to coaches and going to the, getting the books and going to the podcast. And we're trying to close that gap with information that we don't have, or getting a wingman to help us that.
Mm-hmm.
If you're happy with that gap, cool. Doesn't matter. But if you're dissatisfied and you're pissed off about it, let's do something. If there's a big gap, there's probably more need to change. If there's a small gap, less need to change. The biggest question is, how fired up are you? How motivated, inspired are you to close that gap?
That's where the drive would be.
That's what it comes down to.
Do you think people use what is on their bucket list to help them? Do you help people create bucket lists? Suppose it's on health. All right. I have a pretty good health. I'm happy with where I'm at right now. But suppose somebody scores a 4 or 5 in the health bucket. Do you help them close the gap?
Yeah, it's about starting with the end in mind. A bucket list isn't just about the ticks. It's about how we reverse engineer every aspect of our lives to make this stuff come to fruition. It's the growth of us on this journey towards self-imposed destinations, but more importantly, it's about the person on the other side. And that's the person you do not know yet. My wish for everyone is to get curiously excited about the bigger version of you that exists on the other side of your bucket list, because you've got no idea what you're capable of in this life, right? People are dying at 40 and being buried at we have a midlife
crises.
crisis. Let's call it a midlife awakening. People give up. They stop pushing the envelope. They stop being curiously excited, and they hang up the gloves and say, this is my lot in life. Done. I'm here to say, look at the statistics. Look at the mental health perfect storm that we're in right now. We might say we're okay, but we're kidding ourselves. The rate of depression, anxiety is going through the roof. The overprescription of antidepressants going through the roof. The rate of suicides, youth suicides. We've even got this thing now called the loneliness epidemic. It's a real thing. We're all connected more than ever before, but we're actually more disconnected than ever. 89% of people, 90% of people who go to work in the United States are what they call disengaged at work. Mm-hmm. So that means 9 out of 10 people who go to work every day, not into what they're doing, just getting the paycheck, coming home unfulfilled. Oh my God. And then we throw the pandemic on top of that and the isolation that creates. We've got a perfect storm of mental health. So something's broken. Yeah. I'm trying to prevent people going on pills and therapy and give them these bucket list tools or positive psychology tools through this lens of bucket list. They have tools that create the life they want to create. Yeah. Everything I speak about is positive psychology. And that's to help people identify what their strengths are, what gives them more meaning, purpose, fulfillment, and gratitude, and basically bleeding more of that into their work and life. So you have more of a fulfilled life. Right. Well, I'm still doing it 13 years later. It's a way of helping people understand positive psychology principles and making them user-friendly.
You mentioned tools people can use in their quest. We are connected with Facebook and other things, but it's not the same kind of connection. There's so much of that, but people are lonelier more than ever. There's suicide more than ever. So you talked about positive psychology. You talked about tools. What are some of the more common ones that seem helpful for people? Because you are a coach and you talk to a lot of people and you help them. What are some of those tools in the toolbox?
Oh, look, probably the one I'm going to lean into. There's so many, and forever doing courses and new levels of education, and the toolbox. There's a tool in every book behind me. I haven't read any of them, but they
look good.
At the end of the day, there's always new tools. As a coach, the cool thing is after doing a bit of Q&A with clients, you can bring out the right tool for the job. Being a speaker, especially in personal development, you're kind of throwing shit at the wall. Like I did a 2-hour presentation on I normally do 1 hour. I did 2 hours on Friday to this company. And I'm throwing so many stories and so many different concepts, ideas and tools at them. Whatever resonates for that person at that point in time is what they need, right? And so I do a big story about my dad and I reconnecting through my bucket list. I bet there was a father or son there where that story really resonated with them, really helped dads reconnect with families. But another person sitting next to them, did you do a story about your dad? And I didn't even hear it, because they just weren't, that didn't resonate as much as maybe the grid thing that I do. And as a result, that's the thing that stuck with them, and this is the thing that stuck with the other person. So it's not a one size fits all. As a coach, it comes down to questioning where the individual's at that point in time. One of the tools that has always worked for me is to write down 5 gratitudes every night. I know everyone's heard this, but if you do it, it's interesting what happens. My backstory is I went through depression. I had a big personal fitness training company for 20 years, founded and franchised personal training around Australia. I went through a bout of depression. I came out the other side, franchised the whole thing, and someone called me the bucket list guy, and I've been doing that ever since. I went from bricks and mortar businesses, leases and burden to running everything on a laptop. Thanks, Tim Ferriss, for his 4-hour work week. Absolutely ruined my life. I had to lean into what gave me a sense of freedom, what gave me a sense of happiness. Before it was COVID cool, I was working online from wherever. One of the things through that depression that I still practice today is writing down 5 gratitudes every night before you go to bed. The key is to do them at night, like the last thing you do before you go to sleep. 3 is easy. 5, you really got to switch off your monkey mind, which is what we have on a day-to-day basis. A lot of our small business owners will know that all too well. You're always going. Sometimes that results in a really ordinary night's sleep. To switch off, I recommend a gratitude list, writing down 5 things that have gone right for you or put a smile on your face that day. And it's good to do as a reflective activity rather than a start of the day, because the day hasn't happened yet. 5. 3 is easy because you turn off your brain and turn on the gratitude part. And I've had so many people try this tool on for size. You're not allowed to repeat your gratitudes ever. So if you say, I'm really grateful for my family, well, you're not allowed to say it ever again.
I've done the 3 at night for over a year. So now you're challenging me. I'm going to start tonight to switch my monkey brain off and try. What else are your rules? You cannot repeat
and you're
it.
not allowed to repeat. So the devil's in the detail,
right?
So it forces you to think about tiny subsections, event situations during your day that lit you up. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. This morning's coffee. There we go.
Yeah. Has a smiley face on the cup. For those who aren't, who are just audio.
But that was a really good long black coffee, what I drank. And I actually said that was a really nice coffee this morning. That's going on the list.
Oh, nice. You know, it's a small little step, right? So I started a gratitude journal a while ago, and I would just write, I'm thankful for, and then I stop. At some point, I heard somewhere that when you write down your gratitude journal, not only do you write it down, but you write down why you're grateful for that thing. When I started writing down the why, instead of just saying I'm grateful, I would write why I was thankful. That could change from time to time. Tacking on the why brought greater meaning and depth to the thing that I was thankful for.
Maybe I'm just short on time. I want to get to bed. I'm really tired. If I go into the why of 5 of them, I'll be there all night. And I don't think that's all good for me.
It actually doesn't take that long to do.
Yeah. I can see myself going into reflective mode way too deep and then go up all night going down the rabbit hole with my own psychology. That's just me.
Okay. All right.
Let's apply the same principle to your bucket list. When you write down your bucket list items, here's the secret. Write down the what and the why, not the how.
If I worried about the how, I'd never write down the what and the why.
Exactly. People's limitations come up in the how. I haven't got the money for that. I haven't got the time for that. I haven't got the people around me, whatever. I know. Cool.
Do you have a story about somebody who started a bucket list? You know where I'm going with this.
A billion examples.
Okay. Fire us up with an example.
A lot, like we overcomplicate it if we think through the how. Like even people who want to climb Mount Everest, they don't think about every single step because they're going to be, trashed by the elements. Climb Everest 1 step at a time. How you do everything, there's that one simple action that you can make. If you just sit and identify it, hey, I want to go to Italy.
Look at
flights. All right.
Yeah.
Cool. Look at time of year. Involve other people. Therefore group accountability. Now I haven't got the time and the money. Yeah, but just look anyway. And next minute, it does have a flow-on effect. The thing is, when you're here's another hack. When you just identify, and remember, we're just writing stuff down. No one has to look at it, but write down your what and your why. They say your why is going to make you cry.
Hmm.
If your bucket list item is really inspirational, like Sue, you would love to do before you kick the bucket.
I would love to take all 3 of my kids, and if they had partners at that time, on an amazing trip somewhere they normally wouldn't have taken, maybe Europe. So, I don't know, either that or a
There's
cruise. It's
looking at a map.
they all like the beach. It's not the question of where we're going, it's the question of me paying for all of it for them to go.
There's a lot of countries in Europe with beaches. What would be the top of the pile? Is it France? Is it
Spain, Spain. Let's go to Barcelona, Spain. I have a friend that sends me pictures, and it's gorgeous.
Spain? Interesting. What would you do? Rent out a big house?
A house. I have 3 kids. So, yeah, it would
House
be a house.
in Barcelona?
I don't have a map, so I don't know how far Barcelona is from the beach, but if I could rent a home very close to the beach, that's what I
Hmm.
would do.
Did you know Spain, out of all the countries in Europe, is one of the most affordable?
I did not.
Certainly not Italy, and certainly not France. Valencia is a digital nomad hotspot. So is Barcelona. And what do you reckon? You reckon 3-bedroom house or 4-bedroom house?
Or
A 4-bedroom house in Barcelona for how long? 2 weeks. Have you been onto Airbnb and actually looked at that?
No, I have not,
How come?
because I just thought of it now while we're talking.
See, you haven't written it down. You haven't looked. You haven't researched it. Didn't it? Like you said, Europe, big Europe. And we've whittled it down to Spain. We've gone 2 weeks. I'm assuming it's in the middle of summer, so you can enjoy the beach. Is it this year or next year? Probably
Next year. I can't pull
Next
it off
year.
this year.
Would you say June or July?
My friend in Spain was telling me it's starting to get hot here, and we're in May. Maybe May is a better time.
May or June? Yeah, there
May or
you go.
June.
The whole of Europe is starting to fire up. Maybe May, maybe June. 4 bedrooms. Would it do any harm doing some research?
Absolutely not. I probably could pull it off next year too.
You mean we've taken this idea and somewhat overwhelming idea of a bucket list item and pulled it into reality
Mhm.
by actually just giving it some space so we can think about it. A lot of people don't even do that. They're so busy on their to-do list that they forget about their bucket list. That you have to separate your bucket list from your daily to-do list. Bucket list is a tangible life plan where your career and business plan should fit into your life plan, not the other way around. You said Europe, take the kids away. I bet it's got a strong why attached to it because it involves your kids and your family. You'd love to do that because it involves them. In terms of inspiration level out of 10, 1 being not inspired at all and 10 being super pumped, it'd be an 8, 9 or 10, right?
Yes.
When you write down your bucket list items and your what and the why, the ones that are 8, 9s and 10s in terms of level of inspiration, how fired up you are, like I will regret it if I do not do this. They're the ones you move mountains for. A 4-bedroom villa in Spain with the kids, I can guarantee will make you work hard to make happen over the next 12 months.
Yeah. Pretty close. Yeah.
It's got a strong why attached to it.
It does.
Another level of commitment is to tell them.
You can hold me to that.
Makes you and them accountable. Tell your friend, tell your kids, this is what's going to happen. Whether they pay for flights or not, up to you, but I've got your accommodation covered.
The desire for me was to pay everything, airfare, hotel, food, everything, that they could just go and just enjoy themselves. And just
Early, you get it cheaper. So, better to tell them now. Leave it to the last minute.
What do you say to people who are planners? I wouldn't leave it to the last minute. I'm not that type of person. It would cause me more anxiety not to plan a trip like that. So, no, I would definitely plan that out.
Look, this is my 2024 bucket list.
Oh, I love it. It's like a vision board for bucket lists. People
Yeah.
do vision boards for things they want to achieve.
No. Bigger. I've got a bigger bucket list board. I don't call them vision boards. I don't call them dream charts. There's no piles of cash on there. There's no affirmations, because affirmations, I think, are better as tattoos. They have no place on your vision board. So I say bucket list board, and you've got to make it visual. That causes you to plan your year. With my kind of, when I have more time with clients, and we're talking about bucket lists still, I say just dump everything out of your head and onto paper. I created my bucket list blueprint, the namesake of the book, and there's 12 categories for how to create a personally meaningful and holistic bucket list, right? And that helps you go north, south, east, west in your own brain, helps you extract and articulate a personally meaningful and holistic bucket list. Now, when it's all dumped and you'll keep adding stuff to it, it'll be overwhelming. Start with the low-hanging fruit first, the things that don't require time or money. If you want to learn Spanish, cool. Start with Duolingo. You got 12 months to learn Spanish, so you're walking around like a local. But the thing is, it's got a big why attached to it now, because I'm doing this other thing. For most people I've seen on their bucket list, I've created numerous 10-year bucket list plans. So they can create a plan over 10 years and plot what they're going to do year 1, year 2, year 3, even create a bucket list budget, even a bucket list bank account.
Reverse engineer it.
When do you have to put your deposit down for Spain?
When I find the villa I'm going to book.
Find the villa, pay a deposit, or work out something and commit.
What would you say to people who are having trouble taking the first step for a bucket list? They're overwhelmed. Walked me through reverse engineering. My bucket list, there is a strong why behind it. Taking that and reverse engineering it. What would you say to somebody who's mildly overwhelmed?
Low-hanging fruit. Look at it like travel, the most expensive and time-consuming items on a list.
What are other items?
Learning Spanish, starting a YouTube channel, creating something, learning a new skill. These don't take any time or any money. All they take is bandwidth. All they take is that initial small step. It might be ringing someone. It might be just booking in, paying a deposit, publicly declaring something. What's the first step in running your first 5-kilometer race? Entering. Paying the entry fee. Now I've got to train. That initial step busts through inertia. Often we look at that first step, the overwhelm, the enormity of goal, and we build it up. But when you whittle it down, the first step is minute. Do people need accountability around that? Most do. In our community of bucket listers, it's about helping people take that first step. It's that action-focused attitude that gets people to smash through and drop those first dominoes that gives you momentum and motivation to smash through the bigger ones. Spain, booking a villa, flights, cost, time, mounts up, accountability. At the end of the day, it's not just about those, it's about the smaller ones. I'd suggest people write this stuff down, go with the what and the why. Don't worry about the how. The how will find, when the why is strong enough, they'll work itself out. It's so true. You're training your brain. Most people, if they haven't written goals down, they haven't punched anything into Google yet.
That's true.
Right?
I like that.
And neuro-linguistic programming, we talk about your reticular activating system. And a reticular activating system is our brain's ability to take 2 million bits of information per second that enters our head, our line of sight, our peripheral vision. And its job, the reticular activating system, is to distort, generalize, filter the key bits of information, 7 plus or minus 2 bits. We only take that small speck of information that means the most to us. That's the whole thing. You buy a particular car and then see that car everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I bet, without a doubt, Sue, you'll start seeing more Spanish villas and you'll start noticing Spain.
Yeah.
Whether it be blog, on Instagram, videos,
Hey,
whether it
you know
be
what?
a Spanish-speaking person, and you're like, what? You've just typed it into Google. The universe is trying to show you the way to make that come to fruition.
I'm laughing because that happened with my book. I wrote a book. My book's coming out in September, and that actually happened with the book. I didn't intend to, but my coach about a month ago sent me an email. He said, "You started your book back in August." And I'm like, "No, I don't think so." He sent me and shared a document with him back in August that I started a book, completely forgot about it. And then December, he mentioned it in passing. And then, but in January, 3 different sources, not my coach, but 3 different other sources came in my line of sight about writing a book. And I was like, wait a minute, I think I better stop, pause here and pay attention. The reticular activating system already had that book was already going in the back of my mind, and I didn't even realize it. That's powerful. That's really powerful. So
we don't actually, the fact is people don't trust that enough. They don't trust the universe. If you dump your bucket list onto a paper, you've punched them into Google. The devil's in the detail. The more specific, the better. If you say them out loud, one of the things on my bucket list is I want to see a live sumo match. Cool. Because I've said live sumo match out loud, I'm probably going to get hit with ads now. Like, that's just the way the algorithm works. If you say anything out loud, the algorithm conspires to make it happen. I bet I'll have trips to Tokyo, Japan. But the point is, algorithm or not, that's just what happens. That's why I say write it down first, punch it into Google, and then the reticular activating system will make it happen. We don't trust it enough. Fear of disappointment, fear of the. So I can get into a long explanation as to write your bucket list out this way, this way. No. We've got to just punch it into Google first. You only punch it into Google by writing this stuff down. Better if it's actually pen to paper. It makes it more conscious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard that too. It's interesting because we don't allow ourselves to dream anymore. There is so much information out there that we are bombarded with that we don't allow ourselves the opportunity to sit in quiet and sit with ourselves to have a little bit of that dream. I wonder how much of us take in somebody else's dream. When you're listening to everybody else's chatter, it's really hard to hear what your own mind wants to do. Do you find that when you talk to clients that sometimes that's actually happening? How do you help somebody there?
Spot on. Yeah, spot on. And it's even worse now with social media. We're all comparing our behind the scenes footage with someone else's highlights reel.
Mm-hmm.
We see that every day on social media. Comparisonitis is getting a personal bucket list where you've taken time to work on your life. You might need quiet time to just think. Look at my TED talk, look at my book to help you go north, south, east, west in your brain and extract this stuff. Your bucket list makes your life simpler. It quietens the noise.
Mm.
When you're full with your own agenda, you haven't got time for anyone else's. The only reason we get pulled in everyone's, different direction and, is because most people are followers, not leaders. You're at the mercy of everyone else's agenda. Yeah. It's simple.
Yeah.
People with an agenda ain't got time for your agenda. People have to fit in around yours. If you've got too much white space in your calendar, fill it.
Makes me think about I heard it said that if you don't fill your life with your life, somebody else will fill it for you with their life. Pretty
You'll
much
be
the same. That's
administrative
what you've
leave.
been saying. You'd just be
Yeah,
doing
and
something else.
this is about proactively living rather than by default. What if you live by intentional design rather than just exist? This is about living proactively rather than reactively. So many people live reactively,
Right.
reacting to the world and other people. That's how they run their day, their life, reactively, versus getting on the front foot and going, no, this is what I want to do today. This is my agenda, not in a bombastic way and pissing people off, but just taking charge. That's self-leadership.
Do you find when you help people create their bucket list that it actually starts trickling down into their day to day and helps refocus them? Yeah,
Yeah, it helps
everything. Yeah.
everything. And, you know, the
What's
reverse engineering thing, someone wants to climb Mount Kilimanjaro and go to Africa. Cool. Now we've got to create a health plan around that. I want to purchase my first property. Guess what? We're going to create a wealth plan around that.
what's a memorable story of somebody who has had a dramatic impact on their life? Even if the thing they created for the bucket list isn't dramatic, like climbing Mount Kilimanjaro.
There's so many. Okay, so one of the first events when I became the bucket list guy, I used to, for about 3 or 4 years, run public events where people rock up. We hang out. We call it the bucket list experience. It was 3 days of personal development, mindset, etc. One of my, it was could have been the third time I ever run it, and Simon, one of the guys, dragged along his friend Cam, just over 40-year-old teacher. He didn't want to be there. He sat for 3 days in the back, hands crossed. The big guy, we're talking 160 kilogram guy, overweight, smoked, drank the whole bit. And he's sitting there with Simon, hands up, every opportunity, you know, nodding his head, going,
Not buying it.
Here. He was just there because Simon made him come. And then we're up to this section where I get people to action something on their bucket list. I do this thing called a countdown. I give people 10 minutes to act on their bucket list. They've got to commit to something, right? After a lot of rapport has been built, I said, Cam, it's obvious you don't want to be here. Can you do me this one favour? We're coming to the end of this 3-day bender. Just do something, mate. Just so you've got some sort of value out of this. Don't compare what Simon's doing or the rest of the group. Don't worry about it. He was not in a good place at that point. He goes, just to make you happy, you know. So we come back after the 10 minutes and everyone's, you know, I've booked this holiday. I've told my kids we're going to do that first commitment that sets the momentum going. We got back and I said, all right, Cam, what did you do? And he's like, oh, God, I can't believe I did this. I booked myself into a 5-kilometre run. I went, awesome. You know, everyone, round of applause. And I said, show me the proof. Show me the email confirmation. That's what I do with people. It's extreme accountability. Right. So if you say you've bought this or you've booked this trip, it's like a Google search is not a commitment. Show me or I'm going to call bullshit. No one wants to be found out. He's gone, all right, there's my phone. Yep, congratulations, Cam. Cost him $20. I don't know how long. Done. Booking it as one thing, rocking up. Anyway, he did it. He walked the whole thing. He wasn't a runner. He was overweight, had diabetes, on antidepressives, like I said, smoke and drink. But something happened that day. He committed to something. So there was some need in him to get healthy. Yeah. He did the 5K run. He had family, friends at the finish line. And he's like, he finished. They gave him the medal. He had the participation T-shirt. He was still obese. But something happened. Positive reinforcement started to kick in. On that day that he finished, he paid for a 10K run. He had to start training. He jogged half of that. He got the participation medal from more people around him. Before you know it, he was starting to hang out with some people who were also runners. On the day he finished the 10K, he entered a half marathon.
Awesome.
21K. All right. So now you really got to train. You can't just rock up to a half marathon and have a crack. After the half marathon, guess what? Then from the full marathon, he booked his first mini triathlon. Wow. After that first triathlon, he booked into, it was the first mini, and then he did his first Olympic distance, which was 1500.
Smokes.
Then from that, this is literally on the day that he finished, he booked into a half Ironman. Then he booked into an Ironman. This is over the course of 2 years or whatever it was. Yeah.
I bet he got healthy too.
He changed his whole social circle, gave up the alcohol, he got off antidepressants, he got out of teaching because he hated it. He lost a truckload of weight, like down to nearly 100 kilograms, still a big guy. Created a whole new life for himself. Got a girlfriend who was also a triathlete. One of the proudest days was Melbourne Ironman, where he was finishing. He came in just before midnight, which is the absolute cutoff, like literally 5 minutes before midnight. I was a catcher. So this is people that hang around right at the end and they're catching these people before they fall over the line. Simon was there, I was there, his family, new girlfriend, everyone. He'd come in, chafing, blood, all sorts of stuff, and he'd made it. It was one of the proudest days of my life.
How'd that make you feel? It's amazing.
Job done.
Job done.
Job done. It gets me, that one. So many where it's changed the trajectory of their life. And still to this day, unbelieve the story that he led himself to believe. And now he's a fit guy.
Yeah.
And he attracts fit people.
What a story. It's funny when we create something, we have no idea who it's going to touch or how far reaching it's going to be. And even just creating a bucket list, you have no idea whose lives are going to be touched and people that are going to be impacted.
His initial bucket list goal was a 5K run. It wasn't an Ironman. That's just even in his galaxy to think of.
Yeah. I love it.
You rewrite the script, unbelieve the story you lead yourself to believe. And that is just a story, you know, like people when they create stories about themselves, all they've done is taken a bunch of situations in their life, cobbled them together and put meaning over the top of it, and now it's become part of their story, their identity. I am not a runner is one story. Oh, really? But you made it up. You can unbelieve that if you want.
Yeah. It's funny you should say that because I was just talking to somebody else about what's in our past. It's not an all-out denial. Sure, shit happens. We all have those skeletons in the closet. We've all been through stuff, but that we just don't need to allow that to define us. You don't have to take what somebody else may have spoken over you and believe it is truth. Like that guy did. He wasn't a runner, but he's like, there was something inside of him that was driving him to go do that. And you don't have to, you don't have to believe that. You don't have to believe the BS that goes on. I'm glad you shared that story because I hope that's encouraging somebody who has that story, that negative story that they put over themselves. You only have this moment, right? This moment affects what we choose, what happens in the future. The past is the past. Let's move forward.
Yeah, the whole, I don't believe anyone tells me. Simple. Like if people say, I can't do this, and that's a red flag to me, and I can hear it a mile away. Complete bullshit. I've got too much evidence, too many stories where people have unbelieved the story they've led themselves to believe and done something completely opposite. I've got too much evidence to say that is bullshit. If someone wants something bad enough, and that's the problem. You've got to find space to identify what that is. If someone wants something bad enough, they'll find a way to make it happen. They will. It's as simple as that. Let's worry about the what and the why first, not worry about the how.
You can find
it's not a matter of resources, it's a matter of resourcefulness.
There's a book out there, Who Not How. You don't even have to read the book to find out what the book's about. Just find the who to execute the how. There's a who out there.
If you write down your bucket list, I did this the other day. On one of my podcasts. So I'm a podcast host, the Bucket List Live podcast. And I'm showing the guest my bucket list board. His name's Chad Willardson. He does quite well. He's just put out his 5th book. He runs a company called Pacific Capital, and he's an investment advisor for ultra high net worth individuals based out of California. And I didn't really know him. I just reached out to Chad and I said, dude, you're living a bucket list life, hence the name of the podcast. Really hard to nail down, and now we're mates. And I showed him that. He's like, hey, what's that?
Yes. What is that?
I said, well, that's $1 Million Round Table. He goes, I know. I'm speaking at the $1 Million Round Table later this year.
Wow.
For me, that's a full bucket list, like a prestigious event to be a keynote speaker at. Mm-hmm. Amazing room. It could be 10,000 people. If you're a professional speaker, the $1 Million Round Table is on their speaking bucket list. Mm. And Chad's gone, well, I know all the organisers. They've been trying to get me on there for ages. I'm speaking in September. Reconnect with me in September, and I'll connect you with the organisers. Travel will make that happen. It is my wish to make that happen for you.
Wow.
And I went, really? And he goes, dude, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
If you hold your goals in the bucket list items in, how are the resources meant to show up?
Nobody
knows.
Don't
publicly declare them, if you don't share them, even with a bucket list buddy. I do this with corporate as well. I get everyone to share with each other. Don't brag, but share bucket list items. The person next to you knows a connection, knows someone that can make that happen. Just collapse that time frame from dream to reality.
Right. Now, I have an idea. This is your podcast, right? You showed that board, and that guy saw the $1 Million round table. What are 2 things on your bucket list where you don't have a house? Put it out there in the podcast world.
Okay, 2 things. Mm-hmm. Oh, this thing's been sitting next to me since the start of the year, so I've kind of already reverse engineered everyone.
Already? Really? Well, so what's the house in the lower right corner?
I'm knocking down a current investment property and putting that up.
Ah, okay. So that's already what are the white houses?
It's on my bucket list is to design and build my own off-the-grid house. I'm a Tesla guy. It's all off the grid.
That's on my bucket list, by the way, a Tesla. That is on my bucket list.
That was on my bucket list. I got it 2 years ago.
I thought it was going to be this year, and it could still be, but it's on my bucket list. Oh. Well, the Tesla was on my vision board, but I could move it to the bucket list. Can the vision board and the bucket list cross-pollinate?
Yes, no rules. It's amazing because it's in my line of sight.
Right.
I've already reverse engineered one of the big ones, probably the most expensive one. I've even made steps towards it. But it's to kayak around Antarctica with my dad.
Wow. Do you have something on your bucket list, even if it's not on that board, that you don't know how that's going to happen, but it's on Trav Bell's bucket list?
I guess I've trained myself too much because I just go, bang, I'm an action taker. So I'll Google it. I'll make some inroads straight away.
Your time to action then is really short. Something you encourage people to do.
I've done over 50 things on my bucket list. I'm not one that wonders if that'll work. I do it to test myself, my resolve, and how adverse I am to risk. But very little to take that first step.
What would you say to somebody who is mildly risk adverse and they want to create a bucket list? What would your suggestion be to them? Because sometimes, Mount Kilimanjaro is kind of risky. That might be risky to them. What would you suggest somebody who's like more conservative but wants to embrace the idea of a bucket list?
I'm going to go back to square one. Is like, have you written down? All right. Because the real risk adverse people won't even write this stuff down.
Okay.
Because they don't want to disappoint themselves. So have you written it down? No.
There you go.
No. Go back to step A. Write it down. Into why do you want to go to Kilimanjaro? Just because? That's not much of a reason, is it?
No, that's not a why.
But going to Spain?
I got a deep why on that. I just didn't go into it.
So how would you rate that out of 10? Kilimanjaro? 5 out of 10. I could take it or leave it. versus, 9 out of 10 for the Spanish thing. I spent 20 years in personal training. We'd get people, nearly 2 million sessions. We had 300 odd personal trainers working under that brand. I had studios up and down Australia. And we do these initial consults with people when they first come in. What are your goals? 95% of them would say lose weight and tone up. Oh, shit, haven't heard that before. Into sarcasm. And then we'd ask why. What do you mean why? I just want to lose weight, tone up. No, everyone's got a different reason. And some people will go, well, just to balance out weekends. What do you do on weekends? Well, I like to party, I like to socialise, and a little bit relaxed. I work hard all week. And so let's say you're, how bad do you want your results? You say you want to lose weight, tone up. You're saying this to me. How bad do you want results? Oh, no, Trevor. They're not going to get results. But then you get some people who you ask them, all right, what's your reason why you want to lose weight, tone up? And these are real reasons. Well, Trav, I've just come back from the doctor and he said, if I don't do something, I'm going to die. I'm going to have to go into surgery. I'm not just changing this, but also my diet, my career. As a result, I haven't got the energy to play with my kids on weekends because I'm spent after a week at work. I sit on this is literally one that a big guy said, I literally watch my kids outside. I sit we've got a beautiful house. The kids are outside and play on their swings and play soccer. I sit on the couch every weekend and cry. As a grown man, I sit on the couch and cry. I haven't got the energy to play with my kids. I said, all right, mate, his name's David. You don't have to tell me anymore. Or you'll get the more superficial ones. Oh, yeah, summer's coming and I'm having to get into my clothes, but to get into my clothes, I have to do like the worm on the bed to try and get the jeans on, and it's not pretty. So, all right, I get that.
Yeah.
It's not strong why, but it's reasonably strong. Depends on the person.
It depends on the person.
But then you'll get a newly divorcee who wants to get back on track. There's a strong why there. It's all about her or him.
Right.
Or it's like, Trav, you know what? I haven't been laid in quite a while. I'm scared of being lonely. I want it to be all about me. Let's do strong why. There's others like that. You just look in their eyes, and I've done this thousands of times. You just look in their eyes and they're like, just get out of the way, Trav. Just show me the equipment and I'll go. Tell me what to eat and I'll do it.
Yeah.
Their motivation is crazy high, and you're already going to get results. They just need to be guided. So what if we applied that over into other areas of our lives, bucket list items? What are the things that you'll look back and regret if you don't do it?
Right.
And who's to say that you can't do them in this lifetime?
I was talking to a friend once and we were talking about time horizons, and he was getting on my case. He's like, Sue, you live with urgency. What if you calm down and put it on a 40-year timeline? And I'm 52, so 40-year timeline puts me at 92. So, I might be around at 92. But when you put it on a 40-year timeline, and you think about it that way, then it removes this sense of, okay, I had to do everything yesterday. So that urgency, but on the flip side of that is somebody who comes in and says, you know what, I do want to lose weight. I want to achieve that goal. There is that urgency, but there's also that sense of being realistic as well. It's like, okay, if I don't achieve that in a week, it's okay if I take 3 months. Moving forward is what's important. It's not always about how fast you get to the destination, but that you're moving forward and you'll get there.
It's about creating that momentum, and with that comes motivation.
And just get going.
And that's why I say go to the low-hanging fruit first after you've mapped out your bucket list. Go to the things that can be done now, today, this weekend. That'll give you the sense of, that sense of accomplishment. Get those early wins. I'm into delayed gratification, but I'm into instant gratification too. I'm doing 5 things on my bucket list right now. It's not one, then the other.
You can do bucket list things simultaneously.
You want to do your villa with the family in Spain in June next year. I'm committed to that publicly. If the kids are listening, who's to say you can't learn Spanish?
Yeah, I do know Spanish. That's cool. Well, Trav, I feel like we could keep talking for a while. I ask the same question of all my guests, and I love this question. What is one small step that someone can do today that's going to help them change their tomorrow?
Write down your bucket list. Get it out of your head and onto paper, and get busy on your bucket list as much as you do on your to-do list. If the book is a guide, the TED Talk, Life is Too Short by Trav Bell, you can YouTube it, and that'll give you a bit of a framework. Write it down immediately.
Perfect. How can people find you?
They should punch me into Google, Trav Bell, the bucket list guy. If I don't turn up, someone's going to get the sack. Your team has done a crappy job. They can go to thebucketlistguy.com.
Sounds good. Well, Trav, thanks for your time. This was fun. I enjoyed busting some of my bucket list myths. I appreciate that. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I value your time with me, and I seek to make every moment count. In order to make lasting change in your life, listening is usually not enough. So I want to ask you, what practical steps are you going to put into action today as a result of listening to this podcast? Remember, any step, any action, no matter how small, starts your journey to a big win. And if you're not sure where to get started, reach out to me and let's have a conversation. Until next time, love yourself, then love others. Peace.